Good afternoon, class. Today being 29th of July 2024, we're going to continue with our lectures on research methodology in nursing or application of research in nursing. Now, in our last lecture, we were able to define what research is and we also compare research with scientific method. We also talk about importance of research as far as nursing is concerned. So it's just going to be tips on research. But going back to the definition of research, from the name, just that research, you are doing something again, meaning something that has been done before in the past, or something that is already in existence. That is what you still want to dig into to know more, or to add more knowledge to an existing knowledge. That is just what research is all about. So then we will, and this, in the process of doing this, there are some terminologies or there are some terms that you always have to contend with as far as research is concerned. So meaning there are some terminologies that we need to be very familiar with. And these are words that you come across anytime you come to talk about research. So I will give short definitions of some of these terminologies, and when time permits or where necessary, I'll give some little explanations so that anywhere and anytime you come across these terms, as far as research is concerned, it will be very easy for you. And once you are familiar with some of these terminologies, I think you've done the bulk of the work as far as research is concerned. Yes, from the beginning, having understood what research is, meaning you are digging into a new knowledge or into an existing knowledge, or you want to add to an already existing knowledge. Yeah. You come across words like abstract. What is abstract? Abstract is a clear, concise summary of a study that communicates the essential information about the study. In research journals, it is usually located at the beginning of an article. So when you hear abstract, it's just like a summary of the whole sum. That is the whole work that you did as far as that research is concerned. It's just a clear summary of everything that you did from chapter 1 to the last chapter. That is those little informations about all you've done, the information you collected or the data you gathered, the way you gather your data, your findings, and your final result. So that is abstract. And if you observe, it is embedded in the first part of your research. It is located in the beginning of your research work. When you see the bulk of your research, the first thing that you put there is your abstract. So once anybody want to know anything about it, get insight, if somebody want to get insight into your research, the first thing they do is they'll go to your abstract and read your abstract. Your abstract tells a lot about the content of your research. In some instances, they will tell you that it shouldn't be more than 250 words. Some, they will tell you it shouldn't be more than 300 words. And the next one is data. Data. We've been using this word data. Data. It is unit of information or any statistics, facts, figures, or general materials, evidence, or knowledge collected during the course of the study. Meaning, information you gathered, or the statistics, or the figures you gather, or the knowledge, or the evidences, or the informations you collected during the process of the study. That is what is referred to as data. For example, number of classes, number of children, number of times. When you collect this thing together, it is what is referred to as data. Number of this, number of that, time of this, location of this, and what have you. This is what is referred to as data. So informations or statistics or figures or materials or evidences or knowledge you gathered during study is what is referred to as data. Then, what if it is just single information or figure or fact? What do you call this? You call it datum. So the singular of this, the singular of data is datum. So but you don't say datas. You want to pronounce the plural part of it, and you say datas. No, that is wrong. There is nothing like datas. Only data or datum. Then another word is variables. Variables. This is another aspect that is very important, or another term that is always used when we come to carry out research work or when you carry out studies. Variables, these are attributes or characteristics that can have more than one value, such as height or weight. In other words, variables are qualities, quantities, properties, or characteristics of people, things, or situation that change or that varies or that vary. So these are like attributes or characteristics. When you come to do studies, you say you want to measure weight, the height, the age of people, the size of the people, the size of a property, the length of something, the height of something, or occurrence, numbers of occurrence, or how things occur. All these things are called variables. All these things are called variables. So once you hear variables, or once you anything that have to do with characteristics of something or value of something, such as height, weight, age, time, things, situations, and that can change or that varies or that differs, these are what is called variable in research. And we have different type of variables. We have dependent variables, independent variables, research variables, and many of them. So there is dependent variable. Dependent variables, these are variables that change as the independent variable is manipulated by the researcher, sometimes called the criterion variables. Dependent variables, these are characteristics that depend on the independent variable. For example, if we say weight, age, or a person, an individual, is an independent variable. Then age or height or weight of that person is a dependent variable. So when there is change in that individual, or if that individual is manipulated, of course, either the height or the weight of that individual will change. So dependent variable, these are variables that depend on an independent variable. Mind you, we say variable are just like characteristics of something. Say like you have human being is a variable. But characteristics of that human being, you will now classify that human as an independent variable. It stands on its own. Then dependent variable of that individual is like age, the height, and the weight of that person, or the temperature, body temperature of that individual. Because As soon as the situation of that individual changes, then the body temperature of that individual will also change. Then we have that is dependent variables. Then the independent variables, these are variables that are purposely manipulated or changed by the researcher, or it is also called manipulated variables. And we have research variables. These are the qualities, the properties, or characteristics that are observed or measured in a natural setting without manipulating and establishing cause and effect relationship. For example, the weather. Weather is a quality or characteristics that can be measured naturally in a setting and without necessarily manipulating the cause of the change. You cannot manipulate the cause of the change of the weather or the effect of the relationship. And we have demographic variables. These are variables or the characteristics and attributes of the study's subjects are considered demographic variables. For example, age, gender, educational status, religion, social class, marital status, habitat, occupation, income, medical diagnosis, and so on. You know, these are characteristics. These are characteristics that give the information about an individual or about something. Mind you, we said individual as human is an independent variable. Then between that variable that you can deduce a demographic variable. So if you say age of an individual, of course age is a variable, but it's a demographic variable. Then from name say demographic, it's just a characteristics or attribute of a subject. So if you are age, you are gender, educational status, religion, social class, occupation, marital status, income, diagnosis, all these things are variables, but demographic variable. You're just trying to bring out characteristics of a particular variable, which is human being. And human being can be classified as an independent variable. Another example of variable is extraneous variable. External variables are the factors that are not the part of the study, but may affect the measurement of the study variables. They are commonly known as confounders or confounding variables. For example, if you're trying to measure the timetable, the temperature of an individual, and you subject that individual, or you put that individual in a room and you on the AC. You know, AC is not a variable, but it is something that can affect the measurement of that study of the variable. Once you put somebody in a room that is fully fortified with AC, if you come to take the temperature of that individual, the temperature will be affected. So that thing that, change or that you use in manipulating the temperature of that individual, that will be considered as a variable, but extraneous variable. I hope if you are following what we are saying. Then, part of the things you see or the terms you come across during research is you hear things like operational definition. Everybody is fond of using this operational definition. Maybe after the table of a content and your abstract and whatever, the next thing is operational definition. Yeah. This is the way by which a researcher clarifies and defines the variables under investigation. In addition, the researcher must also specify how the variables will be observed and measured in the actual research situation. Operational definitions, some of those words, key things or variables that you use. Maybe for example, you say height, weight, time, weather, age. These are things that you have as your, terms that you provide the various definition to some of these things, so that the person that will read your research work or your study, once he come across some of these variables, these words in the body of your research, the person will not be confused, and the person don't need to start struggling to know what you meant by those variables. And the next term is concept. It's a word that is picture or mental idea of a phenomenon. The concepts are the words or terms that symbolize some aspect of reality. For example, stress, pain, or love. Concepts are the building blocks of theory. Concept is just like a mental idea of something. What you feel about something. The way you picture something in your mind. The belief you have about something. The idea you have about something. That is concept. Things like stress is a concept because it's something that it is inherent. It is within that person. It is that person that will tell you that this is what I felt. Pain, it is something that is still within that person. Love, it is something that can only be pictured by the individual that is involved. So that is concept. So that's why sometimes in research, some people will say concept of this. For example, you are talking about genetics. Then you can say the concept of genetic screening. Concept of genetic screening. The mental idea, the picture of genetic screening as you view it, the view you have about genetic screening. And that's why good research, most of the times, come with concept, especially when you are doing your empirical studies. The first thing you do is bring out the concept, the building block of the theory that you are working on. Then another thing is the construct. Construct. The construct term is used to indicate a phenomenon that cannot be directly observed, but must be inferred by certain concrete or less abstract indicators of the phenomenon. For example, wellness, mental health, self-esteem, all these things are construct, and they can only be measured through indefinable and measurable concepts. For example, wellness can only be assessed through laboratory data. So construct, this is just like a phenomenon that you cannot picture in your mind. You cannot picture it in your mind, but you can only, measure it through laboratory assessment. Level of wellness of an individual. It's not something that you can picture in your mind. You cannot measure level of wellness of an individual using your thinking. It must be inferred by certain concrete or less abstract indicators. And the only way is maybe you subject it to laboratory investigation. That is what is meant by construct. Then pilot study. A pilot study is a study carried out at the end of the planning phase of research in order to explore and test the research elements to make relevant modification in research tools and methodology. Pilot study, you see, once you have a phenomenon in mind, once you have a concept in mind, or you picture something in your mind that I want to carry out study on this. Maybe you want to do a relationship between one phenomenon with another phenomenon. Let's say you have in mind that you want to study whether there is a relationship between the use of social media and academic performance of students. Then you can just design just maybe a mini study and just carry out some little, I mean, questions, collect information about the use of social media in relation to academic performance of students. Using like just few numbers of people, you can randomly pick about 10 in a population of 100. You are using this to test the elements that you have in place, or you have to put in place to carry out a wider research. So the result of that your study will now help you to plan again, to do proper planning, so that in the course of your study, you won't repeat the same mistake you made during your pilot study. So a pilot study is just like a pre-study. You do this before you go into a wider study, so as to aid your planning. And once you do this, you do first you are evaluating yourself. After the first evaluation, then the result of your evaluation now will now help you to plan for the wider research. So once you hear pilot study, it's just you carry it out. When you are done with your planning, you already have this plan, you want to carry out this study, and then you now say, okay, let me do this short, just little study to see if there is need for me to improve on my plan or to go ahead with your initial plan. The next word is analysis. Analysis. This is a method of organizing, sorting, and scrutinizing data in such a way that research questions can be answered or meaningfully inferences can be drawn. Meaningful inferences can be drawn. It's a method of organizing. For example, you collect information about children between 0 to 5 years. Of course, you cannot just come and submit or write down this information as these children, the height of these children are 38 centimeter, or the weight of these children are just 40. You need to organize in such a way that those from 0 months to 1 year, those that fall in this category, this is their height. Those that fall from 1 year, or from 1 year to 2 years, or from 1 year to from 6 months to 1 year, this is their height, or this is their age. You are organizing it and sorting them clearly, so that we ever come to look at this, or so that when we ever come to look at this work, we now know that, okay, from the children between 0 to 5 years that you studied, those from 0 to 6 months have the height of so number, or have the weight of so number. Those from 6 months to 1 year, they are in this category. So you categorize, you sort, you do your sorting, clear sorting. That is what is meant by analysis. Then another word that is popularly used during research is population. Population. Research population. Research population is the entire set of individuals or objects having some common characteristics that are selected for a research study, e.g., patients admitted into intensive care units, or sometimes referred to as the universe of research study. Research population can be referred to as universe of the research study. I said, you cannot just say, for example, you want to carry out research on patients that are admitted into intensive care units. So Those patients that are admitted into intensive care units, they are your population of your study. And whoever, and it makes your work very perfect and easy because your focus is only on this particular group of patients. This is your research population. And that's why most of the times when you come with your research topics, we'll tell you that who are your subjects? Who are your subjects or objects? Meaning, which population do you want to study? Okay, for example, you said you want to carry out research on relationship or effect of the use of social media on the academic performance of students. Of course, students are the subject or the object that you want to, but from which population? From which population? Then, if you said, okay, effect of social media on the academic performance of students of Standard College of Nursing Sciences. Yeah, this is your research population. But you can still narrow it down to a particular subject. You can say, okay, effect of social media on the academic performance of final year students of Standard College of Nursing Sciences. That final year student, it's your universe of the research study. Then the next one is target population. Target population is the entire population in which the researchers are interested and to which they would like to generalize the research finding. Like students now. If I say students, these are your targets. The students. If you say patients, patients are your targets. So this is target population. So these are things that you need to take cognizance of anytime you are working on research, because these are the questions that sometimes your supervisor will ask you. Which population do you want to use? And which one is your target population? You say, okay, students are your target population. Then the next one is accessible population. The accessible population, this is the aggregate of cases that conform to designated inclusion or exclusion criteria and that are accessible as subject of the study. You know, I told you that you already have a target, which are your students. But this student, which category of student among the students? Then you now come back and narrow it to final year students. These are your accessible population, or that will conform to your designated inclusion or exclusion criteria of your study. So these are your accessible targets. Or you narrow it to a class. You say students of so set. So this is your accessible population. I hope you're understanding what we're saying. Then another term is sample. Sample. This is a very common terminology that we hear as far as research is concerned. Sample is a part of subset of population selected to participate in research study. E.g., representative sample. A sample whose characteristics are highly similar to that of the population from which it is drawn. You know, we say generally students are your target population, Then the sample of this population, it is subset of this student. Meaning, once you said student of the final year set or student of so and so class. So this is your sample. So you draw this sample. So it means in your study, your focus will only be on the final year student. because they are the ones that have the characteristics of what you want to study. They are drawn from this population with that particular characteristics. And the characteristics here now is final year. So it is not all the students. Yes, generally, your target, your population is all the students. Those are your target. But the sample is the final year student. So it means it is not every student that meet up with that characteristics. So those that meet up with this characteristic, those are the final year, because your target, your main target, your focus is final year student. Then another word is sampling. Sampling is the process of selecting sample from the target population to represent the entire population. How do you pick this sample? How do you pick this sample? This student that you want, how do you pick them? That is sampling. The way you pick this subject that you want to use, that is sampling. Sampling, the way you get the population that you want to use for the study. And probability sampling. That is the selection of subjects or sampling units from a population using random procedure, e.g., it includes simple random sampling, stratified random sampling, and systematic sampling. Probability sampling is just like way of selecting small units or the sampling unit from the population. You know, I say your population, your target population is the student. The sample is people that have the characteristics of, you want to study. Then how did you get people that have these characteristics? Or you have these people, numerous number of these people that have these characteristics, like final year students. Then how did you pick the ones you study among the final year students? That is, you do it through sampling. In sampling, how did you arrive at those units? You do probability sampling. And out of probability sampling, you either use simple, you use a random procedure. And in randomizing, you either use simple random procedure or stratified random sampling or systematic random sampling. Then another one is non-probability sampling. It is the selection of subjects or sampling units from a population using non-random procedures. Examples: convenient, purposive, and quarter sampling. All these things we are mentioning during the course of explanation of the wider explanation of research methodology. You will understand some of these things we are talking about. Then reliability. These are words that are often used during research. Reliability, it is the degree of consistency or accuracy with which an instrument measures the attribute it is designed to measure. The degree of consistency or accuracy with which an instrument measures the attribute it is designed to measure. For example, you want to measure the temperature, the blood pressure, the height. So the instrument you are using, how reliable is the instrument in giving you the designed measured? That is the reliability. That thing you want to use to know what you are studying, is that thing giving you what you are supposed to get or you expected to get? That is reliability. Then validity. It is the degree to which an instrument measures what is intended to measure. So the first one you say is reliability. Is it reliable? Can it give you? Then validity. Then what that thing gave you, is it valid? Did it give you what you are supposed to get, what you expected to get? In reliability, is it going to give you what you designed to measure or to get? Then validity. Then what you get, did that instrument give you what you intended to get? And, the next one is research study setting. A study setting is the location in which research is conducted. That is simple. It could be a natural or partially controlled or highly controlled. Natural or field setting is an uncontrolled real life situation. In a partially controlled situation, the environment is partially modified to control extraneous variables. While in highly controlled situations, the study environment is fully controlled to combat the effect of extraneous variables. So research study setting, it is the location in which the researcher wants to carry out his own research. As I said, it could be natural and it could be partially controlled or highly controlled. You can decide to carry out experiments, putting some things in a place, fully controlling them, the way those things behave. You have to, it is left for you to manipulate it the way you want. But there are some that you only carry it out, like you want to carry out a research in a population of people, of patients that are not directly under your control. You have to visit them. They are here. They are neither here nor in other places. So another one is literature review. Literature review is a critical summary or research on a topic of interest, generally prepared to put a research problem in context or to identify gaps and weaknesses in prior studies so as to justify a new investigation. Literature review is just you are digging into the literature that is already in existence, looking at what some other people have said about what about your own context or about your own topic, what other people have said. That is empirical studies. You are digging into what some people have done before about a particular thing. Maybe you want to define something, you want to look at cause of something, then you look at what some people said about cause of that thing, the causation of that thing, that phenomenon. Maybe you say Mr. Alex identify the causative organism or the cause or the etiology of a particular phenomenon as this and that and that and that in so year or in so time using so type of approach. Then Mr. Steven identified the cause of that same thing using as this and that, using this approach and that approach. So you're bringing different things together. And limitations. These are restrictions in a study that may decrease the credibility and generalizability of the research findings. Those things that may restrict your study. What did you think restricted your studies? Is it your time? Is it the population? Is it the language barrier? Is it the financial constraint? And it may be even weather. Limitation may be natural. Limitations may be something that can be controlled, and something that can be highly controlled or partially controlled. So this is research limitation. These are ways that you come across during in the process of your research. Then manipulation is an intervention or treatment introduced by the researcher in an experimental or quasi-experimental study. The researcher manipulates the independent variable to assess its impact on dependent variable. Hypothesis, a statement of the predicted relationship between two or more variables in research studies. An educated or calculated guess by the researcher. Now, hypothesis is just like a guess or calculated guess by a researcher. And I guess this will happen. Then you now put it into test. That is hypothesis. So I think we have to stop here. So if you have any observation or question about these terms, you can reach me through my email or use my WhatsApp handle for more clarification. But as I tell you, these are just tips on some of the ways you come across during research. So when we come to do wider discussion about research, we'll throw more light to some of this. We'll come across some of these words, and when we get to some of these words, then we will elaborate more. So the next one, in our next lecture, we will talk about steps and research. So you can go and read ahead. Thank you for listening. And as I await, I expect your questions, or I await your observations using my email handle or my WhatsApp handle. Thank you.